All right, guys, we're going to get started in a couple minutes. Go ahead and find your seats, get your last beers. I don't see any reason why not. Huh? Oh, yeah. I've been going to bed at like 9 o'clock. Kapil, please take your seat. Just kidding, man. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. So it's Tuesday, essentially day 2 of the Chiang Mai SEO Conference. This is the second Chiang Mai SEO community event, a free event put on for the residents, or like I guess the digital nomads here in Chiang Mai. We honor what people are doing in Chiang Mai, trying to grow the community here, educate, especially in the field of SEO. So thanks for everyone for coming out, supporting the community. Thanks everyone for signing in online and watching the live stream. Hello, hello. In a second, I'm going to be passing it over to Jarod. Jarod, I met last year. I met him at the conference last year. He always came across to me as a smart kid. And then I saw him on the Lions Eel Show interview, and we learned there, like, first off, how likable of a guy he is, how much of a hard worker he is, and also how it's so interesting how he scaled very, very quickly from 0 to 20K a month on Upwork of all places. So right off the bat, I was just like, this kid's clever, he's very likable. When I was trying to figure out who would speak at these pre-events for this year, Jarod came right to mind. I asked him, he said yes, and we're very, very thankful. So Jarod, you ready to take the stage, ready to do this? Sweet. Everyone give it up for Jarod.
All right, so who here works for or owns an agency? All right, and keep your hands up if you implement custom work for all your clients. Decent amount of hands, good. So the point of this talk is to go over the systems and processes you need to put into place in order to implement custom work for all of your clients. And with the right systems and processes, it's not really all that difficult to do either. So I don't want to bore you with my background, but I do want to share some of the points that are relevant that led up to me being able to give this talk. Maybe. There you go. You may stand a little closer.
Distance does matter.
All right, I'll stand over. Am I blocking it too much? I want to stand right here. All right. So I got started in SEO back in 2012 when I was 14. I was going to be starting college a year afterwards, so I had to figure out how to make money online because no one wants to hire a 14-year-old. I found a site called Hire Writers, which, if you don't know, it's a site that turns out a lot of content for cheap. My extent of SEO knowledge at the time was put keywords in an article a certain amount of times and you're good to go. Didn't really care any more about that. A couple years later, started a corporate job working real estate in the marketing department. Fucking sucked. So I decided to dig a little bit deeper on this SEO stuff that I was kind of vaguely remembered a little bit about. Started digging a little bit deeper on Moz, Search Engine Land, Search Engine Watch, the typical sites that you probably read when you get started. Eventually, I got started on Upwork, created a profile, was offering my SEO services for about $5 an hour. Not too long after that, I was hired by an agency. So this marketing agency was already pretty well established within their niche. They had a 10-person SEO team, probably about 25, 30 people total when I was hired. So this was great for me. I got to just focus on learning and implementing SEO rather than, client acquisition, account management, all that kind of other stuff that kind of comes along with freelancing or owning an agency. And whenever I had problems along the way, I could also lean on the more senior SEOs rather than read a bunch of conflicting articles and just take a guess as to what the right answer was. So with working for this agency, I eventually started taking on more freelance work again, mostly to implement some of the stuff that I couldn't implement just because it wasn't my job to do it. So started taking on a couple extra clients. Most of these clients were also other agencies. So this meant I got a really good understanding of how a lot of different agencies operate internally. Eventually, I was promoted to the lead SEO strategist. Basically, this meant that it was my responsibility to make sure that all clients were getting results. 75% of my time was spent on strategy audits. So it was my job to go into the websites, audit them, figure out what the issues were, how to improve things, what the next steps are going to be to get them further results, and if the client was off track, they just weren't getting the results, what do we need to do to change course in order to get them the results that they were paying for? So in this role, I saw a lot of the campaigns that we were building not being particularly effective. The way that the campaigns were built was through internal packages. So internal packages, I just define it as someone comes on with $2,000 a month. We have a spreadsheet, $2,000 a month. We do X, Y, and Z month 1 through 12. This was optimal maybe 20% of the time. So not that things were failing 80% of the time, but that 80% of the time there were glaring issues that if we were to take a different course of action, sometimes a much different course of action than the predefined campaigns. Okay. Than the predefined campaigns, we would have gotten much better results. So because of this and a bunch of other reasons that I just couldn't control how the agency worked, I eventually decided to part ways with them, among other things. So between working with all these various agencies as well as clients that I would take on and digging into how their previous SEO companies built their strategies, I saw a lot of campaigns that failed where they really shouldn't have. The budget was high enough, it was relatively easy and straightforward to go for the results, but for whatever reason, things were just being held back or things just weren't moving forward. But 5-10 minutes just looking at things, it was super obvious to me, oh, this was clearly missed, that was clearly missed, they over-optimized this. And most of the time it's because they just didn't dig deep enough, right? They didn't take the time and effort to look at the website, figure out what the nuances of each individual client were. And it's easy to understand why they did this, because every blog post I read on the topic, every course I took, every book I read said we need to have repeatable processes. For $1,000 a month, we do X, Y, and Z. For $2,000 a month, we do A, B, and C. And that makes a lot of sense. We're going to have predictable margins. We're going to know exactly how long tasks take. We're going to know exactly how many people we have to hire, when we're going to have to hire more people based on our templatized strategies. So this left me with a question as to whether or not I could figure out a way to plan, create, and implement custom strategies in a repeatable way without having to resort to internal or external packages. External just being you display it on your website, it's in your sales process. So I want to show you guys a little bit of proof in the pudding of using custom strategies, I guess. So this is a personal injury. There will be an image in a second. Personal injury client in Florida. So it's a relatively competitive area for personal injury law. They worked with their previous agency for 2 years with relatively lackluster results. So we took them on and we took a custom approach to their campaign. So instead of starting off by completely redoing their on-site, which really needed to be completely redone, and fixing some of the small technical errors, we focused on cleaning up some of the over-optimized and quite frankly spammy URLs. We had to go into the theme files and we recoded how the theme was producing the H1 tag. It looked great aesthetically, but the issue was just with you couldn't put 4 or 5 words in there without it looking horrible because of how big the font size was. So basically recoded part of it to make it easier to implement the H1 that was fully optimized later down in the page. We also pillowed some over-optimized pages, built PBN links to pages that lacked powerful links, and instead of focusing our efforts on their primary location, we focused the majority of the campaign up to the point that I'll show you on trying to rank them for one of their secondary locations. Sorry. So after 2 months of working together, phone calls were up 170%. After 5 months, $250,000 worth of leads. And after 6 months, we had quadrupled their monthly cases based on where they were when we took them on. Just by honestly not doing a whole lot of work. Sorry if you're watching. It wasn't all that difficult. So there's a lot of fear that comes across with custom strategies, as if in order to create custom strategies, we need to relearn SEO from the ground up. No campaign will be similar to another, or you're going to need 6-figure SEOs that are all super senior and all stuff like that. But none of that's true. So let's get into a couple of reasons why you want to do custom work before we get into the how. So first off, you can make more money. You can demand a higher budget. You're not just selling a pre-built campaign. You are taking the time and effort to understand their website, their business, their goals, so on and so forth. You're going to you're going to be doing what no one else is doing. You're going to come off super different during the sales process as well. I ask prospects all the time, is anybody else talking about custom strategies? And they're like, no, like they said, here are options. For $1,000 a month, we can do this. For $2,000 a month, we can do that, or for wherever it is. So you're taking the time and effort. You deserve to get paid more, and people are more likely to want to pay you more when they know that you're actually taking this extra time and effort compared to all the other pitches that they're hearing. Not only can you get paid more, but you can close a lot more deals. So this isn't the only reason why, but since we implemented these processes in our agency, we've had a 100% close rate on retainers this year, not an exaggeration. Like I said, not the only reason why. So you're able to sell a lot more and a lot easier when you're taking the time and effort, like I already said, to actually create these custom strategies for clients, when they know that you understand their business, when you're able to show them why you decided to plan the campaign in a specific way, when you're able to show them how you found a certain challenge that's unique to their business, that's unique to their local area, unique to their niche, whatever it may be, and you show them how your plan has been formed to overcome these challenges. You're showing them exactly what they need to succeed and how you've created a plan based on what they're doing, and not just telling them that your plan is going to help them reach their goals like we're all taught to tell them. So when they know exactly what you're going to do, how you've planned things around it, they're going to be a lot more likely to close. If they can afford it, there's no reason for them not to sign on. You're literally giving them everything they could ever want, and no one else is pitching this to them more often than not. When you're taking a more targeted approach, you're going to be able to get faster results as well, because you're giving the website exactly what it needs. You're putting your time and effort exactly where you need to be putting your time and effort into. Faster results also means a higher ROI. If you're getting faster results, that means the campaign is going to be profitable more quickly, which means the overall ROI of the campaign is going to be increased. Typically, you're also going to see an ROI of a higher magnitude, comparing a successful, meaning it's making a positive ROI, successful custom strategy campaign compared to a templated one, because all your time, money, and effort has gone into exactly what you need to do. You're not worried about wasting time, effort. Maybe you didn't need those extra citations, and that was $200 over the course of 6 months that you could have put somewhere else. So you're able to put more money into the places that you need to put money into. All of this also leads to a higher, a longer retention rate as well. You're going to be giving them exactly what they want. You're going to be seen as an irreplaceable asset within their business. You're their out-of-house, in-house marketing team. You understand their business exactly. If the client just sees you as a $2,000 a month package, then that means you're easily replaceable with any other $2,000 a month package. Aside from just customizing your approach to SEO as well, you should also take this into account when you're customizing how you deal with clients through account management and customer service. So when you're talking to them, if they seem a little jumpy, they're always asking how are things going, stuff like that. Give them updates more regularly than perhaps you give your other clients. If they really care about bounce rate for whatever reason, explain what that means, the difference between metrics and KPIs. Throw it into your report. They're going to like you a whole lot more. They're going to stay with you a whole lot longer, and it shows them that you understand what they care about. Of course, like I already said, make sure you set your expectations. Otherwise, bounce rate goes down and they fire you for no reason. So, Jonathan. So I told him that I was going to put him on the spot. I did not tell him what I was going to put him on the spot for, so this can go horribly wrong on my end. Do you like tomatoes? Okay, see, so he fucked up. So he said that he likes tomatoes. So I'm going to pretend that he said no. So Jonathan and I were together in Chicago for a boot camp, and I noticed on 2 or 3 occasions when we were eating that he just happened to move the tomatoes to the side of his plate. Didn't say anything. It was whatever. I just assumed, okay, he doesn't really like tomatoes. However, in the sense of customer service, if he was over at my house and I was making him a burger, I'd like tomatoes. Apparently he does as well. But I would be putting tomatoes on my burger. If I didn't think that he likes tomatoes on his burger, I wouldn't mention it to him. I just wouldn't put it on there. He's going to enjoy that burger a little bit more. So what I'm trying to say is pay attention to the things that your clients say. Pay attention to the behaviors that they exhibit. Read between the lines. Deliver the service that, deliver the experience that they're looking for. Answer their questions before they ask them. So on the topic of burgers, imagine that you're in a restaurant. You get the menu, you open it up, you find a burger that you want. Now this burger doesn't have onions on it. You happen to like onions. Server comes over, you order that burger, you say you want it cooked medium rare, and you want onions put on it. The server will write that down, take it back to the kitchen. Now that burger that you just ordered is not on the menu. Right? The burger that you ordered does not have onions on it. The cook was not trained on how to make that burger. So this is obviously going to end in disaster, right? Obviously not. The cook is just going to simply make the burger, put onions on it, simple logic. So it's not a perfect example, but it gives a little bit of insight as to how custom strategies work. We have the ingredients, we can put things on, we can take things off, we can cook it in different ways, we can mix and match our side dishes. So the way that we implement custom strategies, I call this system puzzle piece marketing. So puzzle piece marketing, there are 2 primary processes. We need a process for planning the campaign or gathering the correct puzzle pieces, and we need a process for creating the campaign or putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And we do this through what we call the blueprint creative. I know no one else uses that. So essentially, that's what the blueprint does. Sorry, keep pointing this at the wrong place. The blueprint helps us with both of these processes. So the blueprint itself does exactly what you think it does. It helps us create a roadmap or a blueprint of exactly what needs to be done for this website in order to get them the intended result. The blueprint is a separate engagement. I recommend that you do it as a separate engagement as well compared to a retainer. I'll give you more detail on that in a second. We also have our blueprint set up as a productized service. We know exactly what we're going to do. We know exactly how much things cost, so on and so forth when it comes to the blueprint itself. Dynamic pricing, how big the website is based on what we charge, use whatever method you want, value-based pricing, etc. So on the point of productized service, this is only going to work if you're relatively niche. If you're working with e-com one day, local the next, national after that, one blueprint isn't going to work because there are so many different things you're looking at when comparing an e-com site from an on-site and technical perspective than you are from a local website, which is much smaller, doesn't have as many technical issues. So if you are in a whole lot of niches, you're going to need to pretty much duplicate everything here for each niche. So if you have e-com, you're going to need an e-com related blueprint. If you're doing local, you're going to need a local-based one. Even if you do local, so that's what we do, you might not even be able to go super broad and local. But you also don't have to just be the SEO for plumbers. So we primarily work with contractors and law firms, and our blueprint seems to work with every service-based type business, which is what all of our clients fall under. Wouldn't work with a car dealership, which has a lot of e-com aspects to their website, or jewelers or things like that. So just make sure that your blueprint is set up to work for all clients of a certain niche. If it doesn't, you're going to need a separate one. Did that do 2? No, yeah, that did 2. Anyways, so separate engagement. So a lot of the things that go into the blueprint, you might think, well, I could do that for the first month of a retainer. Don't worry about trying to sell a client on 2 things, an initial engagement and then a retainer. Just make it simple, just sell on a retainer. While you could do that, there's a lot of issues with jumping right into a retainer if you're trying to create a custom strategy. And there's a lot of benefits to also having this as a separate engagement in the first place. So first, you're able to sell more. You're going to close a lot higher as well. So as we all know, a foot in the door offer. Blueprint's a relatively small ask of a client. It's a small turn engagement. It doesn't take very long to go through. And once they give you a little bit of money, they're a lot more likely to give you a lot later on. It's a lot easier to convince someone to give you $1,000 today to work with you for 2 or 3 weeks than it is for them to sign on for an agreement that's maybe worth $24,000 over the course of 6 or 12 months. You're going to have more accurate budget requirements as well. So you don't want to sign a client on for $3,000 a month for 2 months. 2 months later to find out that you actually need $5,000 a month to get the work done. That's not going to be a very pleasant conversation to have. You also get a chance to test out the client. Like I said, this is a short-term engagement. For us, it takes about 2 or 3 weeks. It all depends on how complex your blueprint overall is. But if at the end of 2 or 3 weeks, if we think the client's a dick, they're just hard to work with, we don't like them, there's no point of working with them for the next 6 to 12 months, and we already know after 2 weeks that they're not worth working with. It also gives you advantage for getting results as well, because now a 6-month campaign is now 7 months long. A lot of the things that can go into the blueprint, such as keyword research, we'll get into this in a second, auditing like Google Analytics, getting access to the website and all stuff like that, things you typically do during the first month, that'll be done before you even start month 1. So you get to start month 1 of a retainer, hitting the ground running, focusing just on execution, while everyone else during the first month are worrying about keyword research, waiting 2 weeks for the client to get back to them with their website login information, figuring out that a past employee actually had it and they don't want to give it to them for whatever reason. You don't have to worry about that. Once you get started, you get started. That's how you can see pretty big gains within 1 or 2 months because you're just focusing on execution. You're not worrying about any of the planning stuff anymore. So for the blueprint itself, did I do 2 again? Oh, I did 3. Oh well. So the goal of the blueprint is to help plan and create the entire campaign by gathering all of the information that we need to have a clear understanding of the website, the niche, and the competitive marketplace. I wanted to read that verbatim because whether you have a much more complex version of a blueprint or a lot less complex version of the blueprint, the goal is going to remain the same. The blueprint, like I said, is split up to two pieces. So first is gathering all the puzzle pieces that we need, which is going to involve a lot of audits. We're going to be going through our analytics audits, our Search Console audits, our on-site audits, our technical audits, any type of audit you want to do. These are going to be mostly the way that we have it set up, pass-fail checklists, super easy to implement. Mostly you can have a VA do this without a problem. We also have supporting documents for lack of a better term. So these are things like keyword research, content strategy, and anchor text analysis. They're not going to give you exact tasks that you need to create, but keyword research is going to tell you what you're going after. Anchor text analysis, you're going to use that when you're planning your link building campaign. Content strategy, you're going to use that when you're planning out, when you're going to do content. What are you actually going to build out? What's not a good idea? Very important as well. Make sure that with all of this, you're spending time manually reviewing everything. So you don't have to spend dozens and dozens and dozens of hours having someone just look through the website. Literally, someone just eyeballing a website for 20, 30 minutes can reveal so many things that your SOPs are not going to be able to reveal. Because your SOPs aren't going to be able to account for every small and tiny nuance that comes across with a website. So, really quick, the first half of the blueprint, we're going to be auditing everything. Analytics, Search Console, on-site, technical, depending on who you work, types of clients you work with, depends on what types of audits you're going to be doing. These are your pass-fail checklists, very clear. At the end of the day, these are going to give you exact tasks that you need to do. These are the things that are wrong. These are the things that are right. You're going to have your supporting documents that are going to help plan other parts of the campaign, the documents that you create to help plan your link building campaign, your keyword research, your content strategy, so on and so forth. You're going to make sure that someone's spending time as well playing around with the website, looking at the link profile and Ahrefs without a clear look at A, B, and C. They're probably a higher level person. They're looking for things that your SOPs aren't going to catch, things that are unique with just this individual client. All right, so then you're going to get started on the second part of the blueprint, which is going to involve what I call the master strategy. So the master strategy document is a spreadsheet that contains lists of every task and process that we may do for our client. So it's all the possible things that they can fail during during our audits, there's a task set up for that. We have tasks for on-site. We have tasks for different various link building strategies as well. Tasks for if we need to create a disavow file. This spreadsheet contains every task and every process that we might do while going over the course of a campaign. We definitely don't go through all of these for a single campaign, which I'll get into in a second. And all these tasks also contain SOPs. So with our document, it says, with your document as well as it should say, Google Analytics audit, set up Google Analytics based on your Google Analytics audit. It's going to be done by this person or this position. So it's going to be done by Bob, or it's going to be done by VA. This is how much they get paid. This is how long it takes to complete this task as well. So within creating a custom strategy, we have not templatized, but we have clear understandings and clear SOPs as to all the different pieces that can go into an actual strategy. So we know how long tasks are going to take. We know who does the task. We know what they get paid, and we know all other tasks that get associated with it. So we know what vendors we like using, how much that costs us. We know how long does it take on average to do a disavow file based on, maybe you have some short function that says, okay, how many links on average do they have? Do some quick math and says, okay, they have 400 links. It's going to take this much time to do a disavow file if we need to do a disavow file for them. We also have SOPs for all this, like I said. So attached to the setup Google Analytics, not only do you know who's going to do it, how much time it's going to take, what it's going to cost you, that person should also know exactly what they're going to do. No. There we go. It's a living document as well. So when we're going through this is a document that should be constantly updated by either removing stuff that you no longer do. Maybe 2 years ago you were building Web 2.0s, and maybe now you no longer do that. So you don't need it to be in your master strategy document because you're never going to have to worry about that task again, presumably. Now, through your manual review process, through reading, through taking courses, there's going to be other tasks that you might come up with that you might have to do. So let's say you've never done a disavow file before in your life. Maybe it's a new thing. Let's say Google never had a disavow tool. All of a sudden they come out with it. You go, great. Hey, we might need to do that at some point. It gets added to the list. You don't necessarily know who's going to do it yet, depending on the task. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. You're not going to have SOPs for that. You're not necessarily going to know how long it's going to take. You're going to fill all that out the next time that this task is done through an actual campaign. So the first time that a client actually needs to have a disavow file done, that's when you can estimate, but that's when you're gonna afterwards figure out like, oh, I thought it was gonna take an hour, it only took 30 minutes. Or, hey, we thought a VA could do this, it's actually gonna take a higher level person. While they went through this, they created the SOP for us. So now any other time that we need to do a disavow for a client, we have that SOP. It's the purpose of the SOP in the first place. Strategist is then going to, which I'll get into in a second, take everything that we learned from the first part of the blueprint, which is gathering all the puzzle pieces, figuring out what tasks need to be done, and they're going to start building the strategy. And this all sounds a little complicated, but 80% of the time when we're creating strategies is just filling in the blank. Audit says this is set up, we don't need to set it up. Audit says this is not set up, we do need to set it up. Content strategy says we're probably going to need 10 blog posts, we need to make sure there are 10 tasks for creating new blog posts. Only 20% of the time are we really digging deeper. Are we really needing to have someone ponder, okay, are we going to go on this direction, or are we going to go on that direction? So when it comes to the 80%, it's very much so conditional statements. Like I already said, if something's set up, then you don't need to set it up. If something's not set up, then you do need to set it up. The other 20% of the time, you're going to be reviewing the manual review documents and any notes that maybe came up from an AM during conversations. Hello. So if your average target anchor text ratio is, let's say, 20 to 35%, a client is over-optimized, they're at 75%, you know that you need to build pill links. This is the 20% of the time we actually have to dig a little deeper. You have to figure out, okay, how many pill links do we need to build to be able to get within a normal target anchor ratio? At what velocity do we want to build those links? Are we going to also build target links at the same time, just at a higher velocity of the pill links? Or are we just going to build pill links until we're within the ratio that we need to be and then start building target links again? Conversely, if we are under-optimized severely, we have a 5% anchor ratio, are we going to build target links only? Are we going to also pill a little bit? Are we going to be super aggressive with our target links, at what velocity we're going to go down, so on and so forth. So this is where we actually need to sit down and figure out exactly what direction we want to take. This does require someone that knows what they're doing. You're not going to be able to send this off to a VA who doesn't know much about SEO, who just follows SOPs, because this requires someone that understands all the mechanics of SEO. You're also going to be making decisions like what pages should we prioritize. right? So the client might really care about their roof repair page, sorry, the roof replacement page. Maybe that's what makes them the most money. That's what they care about the most. But maybe you decide, well, focusing on roof repair first makes more sense. We're going to get the results faster. They're going to get a higher ROI faster. That's going to justify them staying on longer, which is going to give us a better chance of being able to show up for the roof replacement stuff in the first place. Like I said, you're making inferences on the supporting documents to figure out exactly what you need to do for this campaign in the cases where you can't just have pass-fail checklists, so do this, do that. You're also going to have some questions that don't necessarily have a right or wrong answer that are just going to come up while you're looking at the site. So let's say there's a 20-point guide where each point is set up on a different web page. So there's 20 web pages. Are you going to keep that as all 20 different pages? Are you going to combine that into one massive guide? Are you going to create a two-part guide where each part of the guide has 10 points in it? What you're going to do is going to depend on what's the content quality of those 10 individual pages. Do those 10 individual pages already have good links pointing to them? Are they currently being used as great internal links for other pages? Are we going to be losing that link juice? Are we going to be using these for outreach? Is it going to be more effective to use these for outreach as 20 different documents and just outreach with one of them? Would it make more sense to get links for one massive document? If people are reading these posts, do they want to read 20 different guides in this niche? Do they want to just sit down on this one page and read 10,000 words of content on a single page? Do they want to read two parts? So these are questions that don't necessarily have right or wrong answers that you can come up with off the top of your head. But this is where you sit down and you figure out, based on everything that I know about SEO, based on everything I know about this client, what makes the most sense to do in this situation? So what locations to target as well is just another example. A client might be going after multiple locations. Well, based on the budget, based on the level of competition, maybe, like I already said with the law firm example I gave you, maybe you don't focus on the location that they care about the most. Maybe you do focus on their city pages because it's going to get you better results. Maybe you focus on a completely new city. Maybe you focus on a smaller service that they do, right? So if you're working with, let's say, personal injury attorneys, there's like 3 or 4 types of cases that they really care about, where maybe you do focus on a lesser case because you're going to be able to get results within a month or two because it's very low competition. So you're just, like I already said, looking at things, figuring out what you want to do, not necessarily right or wrong answers. All right, so at this point, you're going to have a list of all the things that need to be done during the campaign. You have your pass-fail audit checklist tasks. You have the tasks that you've created based on what you found when manually reviewing the website. You're going to have your tasks based on your general idea or a built-out content strategy. You know how many pieces you want to make. You know what types of content they're going to be. You generally know what your link building strategy is going to be. You've already figured out based on everything else. Are you going to be using PBNs, guest posts, mix of both? How many links are you really going to need to be able to get this client where they are? You're going to take this list, and the way that we do it is we have our master strategy is just in a Google Sheet, so we just duplicate it. We delete all the tasks we don't need to do. It takes like 5 minutes to really delete all the stuff that we don't need because we have it organized in a way that just works for us and how we plan everything. But then we're just left with a spreadsheet that just has a compilation of all the tasks that we need to do. So if we need to create 10 pieces of content, there's 10 tasks laid out without any order right now as to, we need to create 10 pieces of content. We need to do the onsite. We need to fix these technical issues. At this point in time, we don't know when we're going to do it, which is what we need to figure out next. All right. So next we have to figure out when are things going to get done. So we're not always necessarily going to do things in the same order. Maybe a client already has pretty decent on-site, so instead of jumping in and redoing the on-site and spending, depending on how big the site is, depending on how big the budget is, instead of spending a month or half a month just fixing the on-site, maybe you leave it as is because the past agency did a decent job. Sure, you want to clean it up, but maybe they're really lacking in the links aspect. So the first month or two, you're focusing on link building, and then you're going to jump into the on-site after. Right? So these are all decisions you're going to make. Do you need to jump into building citations right now? Do you need to do that later? Are there a lot of citation issues? Maybe we're going to jump into a citation cleanup. That's going to be the first thing that you do. Right? So when are you going to create your content? How much content are you going to create at a time? Are you going to create, if there's 10 posts, you're going to do 4 in the first month, 4 in the second month, 2 in the third month, and then use that, have that all done so you can focus on links, for 4 through 6. So you're just trying to figure out when you want to do things. At this point, you're going to have a spreadsheet ordered month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, all the way through 6/12, however long the campaign is, and you'll have ordered all the tasks that you're going to do based on specific months. So just to go over that again, you have all the tasks that you want to do in a spreadsheet. You're then just ordering them based on when it makes the most sense to do that. You might also be splitting up some tasks. So you don't always have to do on-site all in one go. Depending on the budget, depending on how big the site is, different things have different priority. You're not going to worry about optimizing, you're not going to worry about meta descriptions if titles and H1s haven't been touched yet, right? So maybe you split the on-site into 5 phases. You do 1 to 2 phases per month, saving that extra budget that you would have put towards the on-site to giving them some extra links because you feel as though that's what needs to be done. All right, so next, are you going to focus on certain locations or pages first? So I already kind of talked about this. Does it make more sense to focus on the roof repair page before the roof replacement page? Does it make more sense to focus all your effort onto a certain location first? Does it make sense to spend the first 3 months focusing on location A, then months 4 through 6 also start to work in location B? Or maybe the entire campaign just focuses on location A, and you tell the client, like, hey, I know you care about these 4 locations, but you simply don't have the budget for it based on everything else. This is why we need to just focus on this one location at a time. So what takes priority? How are you going to plan things out? You shouldn't just take a shotgun approach and just hope to see that what you're doing is going to get results for all the money pages, all the different locations they're going after. What's going to maximize the budget? What's going to get them the results? So that after 6 months, they sign on for another 6 months. Then they sign on for 12 months, so on and so forth. Now, while you're going through this, you're also going to notice that whether or not you actually need to edit your SOPs. So chances are the way that you have your SOPs for on-site is because that's generally the best way to do it based on your experience within your niche, right? So most of the time, if you write your title tags, city name, keyword - brand, maybe 99.9% of the time, that's how you do it. That's fine. It makes sense for that to be in your SOP. If you just create an on-site task, you tell someone to do it like the master strategy is set up, it has an SOP on that. Whoever does that task is going to implement on-site at that point in time using your SOPs. But you also need to take into account that it's not going to be exact every single time, right? Maybe the client's brand name is just an exact match keyword. You don't want to have Boston roofing contractor - Boston roofing contractor, right? So at that point, you make a note, going back to the example of adding onions to the burger. Anyone who's doing that task, assuming that you're putting the note into place in your project management system that they're going to see, they're going to know that if your note says, hey, don't add the brand name to the title tags on this website at all, that's just what they're going to do. They're not going to add it there. If the schema is all fine, if your SOP says you need to remove the local business schema from their website and add it in based on your own template, well, if the local business schema is determined to be fine, you make a note of it, hey, don't replace that schema. It's going to be super obvious to them, okay, I just don't need to do that then. Or if you do need to change up how the title tags are, hey, don't use this format, use this format instead, right? The SOP should be in a place where probably 80 to 90% of the time that's going to work, because that's what makes sense for your niche, and you're just editing them as need be, which I'll tell you, like, 95% of the time, we don't have to edit the SOPs. It's just situations where, like, exact match brand name or good schema or whatever it is. Those are mostly the 2 situations that we come up with. What's the time? Okay, I do have the time. Ooh. Nope, I'm going the wrong direction. Sorry. Okay. Now, okay. So, gonna go through the entire process again with more visuals explaining it again, just to make sure that the points were clear. So first, we need a process to plan the campaign. We need to figure out what pieces of the puzzle do we need to do for this client. So the pieces of the puzzle are going to be our tasks and processes. We have a task for setting up a hostname filter on analytics. We have a process for doing a complete analytics setup if they don't have a Google Analytics account. And we do the planning process through the blueprint. So the blueprint is a templatized or productized service where we know what tasks we're going to be creating. We're going to be doing a lot of auditing. We're going to have supporting documents like our keyword research. We're going to be looking at everything and anything we need in order to completely plan out this campaign for however long it is. We also need to make sure that we are also spending time to manually review things as well with a human eye. There we go. Your SOPs are never going to be in a place where when you're auditing a website that you're going to find every possible issue. You need to spend, even if it's just a little bit of time, some time playing around with things, clicking on every button, seeing exactly the small things that are wrong with this website. There might be one page on the website that for whatever reason, it takes 16 seconds to load, or maybe for whatever reason, all the images are broken on this one page that you might not have seen through all your normal SOPs, and that it might not make sense to have a task check to make sure every page, every image is working, right? That's something that maybe it doesn't come up very often, so that wouldn't be in a normal SOP. So you need to take time to actually look through things, and when things do come up, that makes sense to do again. So we had a client where the lazy developer nested the entire body content in an H2 tag. So now, that wasn't in our SOPs beforehand, because I've heard about people doing that before and nesting everything in H1 before my time, and that was working. But I've never seen that before, so we were like, okay, great, make sure that gets put into our processes to actually look for this now on. That was the first time we ever seen it with a client. Easy to check for. Now we know to look for it. So aside from a process to plan out the strategy, figure out all the tasks that we need to do, we also need a process to create the actual strategy. We do this through our master strategy. Our master strategy contains lists of all the tasks and processes that we do over the course of a campaign. We're going to refer to this document when we're creating the campaign by looking over it compared to part 1 of the blueprint, which was gathering all the pieces, all the tasks and processes that we actually need to implement in order to build the strategy. And we're eliminating the tasks that we don't need from our master strategy, and then we're left with a list of all the tasks that we do actually need to complete. So we have all these tasks. We know that we need to create 10 pieces of content. We know that we need to do the on-site. We know that there's these 15 technical issues that we need to fix. We know that we need to bring in a developer to move a plugin that they're using off the site, but it might break something. So we know all this stuff we need to do. Now we need to know when we're going to do it, which is the next step, which is actually building the puzzle. So we know everything that we need to do. We then need to plan out, okay, sequentially, how are we going to do this? What takes priority? What makes the most sense to do in month 1, month 2, month 3, so on and so forth. And that's mostly the process right there. We're just planning out the campaign, auditing it, finding the issues, taking all those issues, and then building the strategy around those specific issues in a relatively process-sized way to create we're using a process-sized system to create a custom strategy. And with these systems and processes, creating custom work is not all that complicated. Once you have everything set up, it does take time to, of course, get all this together. Doesn't take us a whole lot of time to put this together. It's not that difficult to do, and we get, like I said beforehand, much better results, much faster results. Clients are a lot happier, closing a lot more as well. In my opinion, this outweighs all the possible negatives, maybe the painful month or 2 that it takes to get all this set up, all this organized, to play test, to make sure nothing's broken in your processes. That's it.
Everyone give it up for the oldest 21-year-old on the planet. Jared, good job, brother. Does anyone have any questions? Just put up your hand and we'll deliver that microphone. Okay, here we go.
Do you ever find it difficult to sell the blueprints? I know a lot of clients might be interested in work done rather than what's kind of theory in a blueprint. Just wondering if you have any thoughts on that. And great talk.
Thank you. So we have had one instance where there was a prospect who was very against the idea of planning things out. Their analogy was, well, if I want to get my roof fixed, I'm going to have someone come out and inspect it. They're not going to charge me for that. They're just going to check things out, and then they're going to get the work done. The issue is that if they just want work done, then they're just looking to hire someone to do work. They're not really hiring someone to understand their business. They're not hiring someone to do anything other than tasks. They're essentially trying to hire an employee who's going to do work that they don't understand how to do. So it's a matter of, that's probably a bad client. I would try to, explain it to them. That's what I always do. Is be like, hey, you're thinking about it like this. Well, here's why you should do it. If they can't get it through their head or they just don't agree with it, that's not a client I want to work with in the first place. same thing if someone came in and they were like, hey, I want you to do all this work for me for $200. That's just not how we do things.
Hey, great presentation. Love it very much. I was wondering how many people are in your team and what kind of, do you have like developers, technical SEOs? What's kind of the split between the people and what kind of tasks do you give to what kind of people?
Sure. So I'm really big on automation. So I love diving into Google Sheets with functions and writing custom scripts through JavaScript or Google Scripts or stuff like that. So most of what we used to have VAs for, I pretty much eliminated the need of that. So there's very few VAs. I just have one VA who just, if I need something that I just don't want to do myself, it's straightforward, she does that. Right now, I've still been doing the on-site part of things, mostly just the planning, not the implementing it, but figuring out what stuff should be, send it over to VA to implement that, just because I found it very difficult right now to hire someone for on-site. For the more technical stuff, I have a developer, so he's on call. There's not usually a huge need for him, because if it's something that I can do in like 30 seconds or if something that VA can do in 30 seconds, just send it off to them. But I do have a developer for the more like digging into the theme files, stuff like that. On-call designer, for when that's needed. Don't need much design work, but if we're adding images to the website, especially for blog posts, if a client really cares about their brand, then that's when designer will have a lot more work to do on creating custom images for them. Link building. So we use a mix of vendors and also a little bit of stuff done in-house. We've moved a lot to vendors eventually back in-house once we fix the processes for that. But linking for pill linking, outreach for guest posts, that sort of thing. I think that's the majority off the top of my head. I might be forgetting someone. I'm sorry if I am, but if that's good enough.
Jarod, first of all, I love tomatoes, hate them on my burgers, so you got unlucky. Ever since deploying these kind of SOPs and these kind of systems, have you found that the overall cost of campaigns has gone down because you're able to use lower level staff to do a bigger amount of the campaign while your expert, so probably yourself and maybe one or two other people, are doing less work?
So I'll say short answer, yes. But what makes that a little bit difficult to definitively say is just because for all the automations I built in, it's obviously made a lot less work and made things a little bit more streamlined. So the blueprint itself, when that first came out, I was operating that with like a 40-50% operating margin. Built out automations, and some of those automations allowed for tasks that I would normally have an SEO do, automate part of it, bring it down to a VA level, things like that. So we were able to build that out to a 75% profit margin. And then from there, I felt that it needed more stuff, so I added more stuff, which lowered the profit margin, of course. But we were able to get more done. And with other tasks, yes, so things are more clearly defined, and because we're focusing on exactly what the client needs to do. So there's some aspects that I would spend more time on than compared to if I was doing package work necessarily. Because if for every client I'm doing 4 blog posts a month, 25 citations, 4 links or anything like that, I could just have a VA do all that. Where if you're looking at more of the nuanced stuff, then that's stuff that a VA might not necessarily be able to do, because of course that's not SOP. So asking someone that doesn't really understand SEO, hey, go into the header.php file and remove that hard-coded instance of a title tag. A little difficult to tell them that, of course. Whereas if that was a common thing for us to find, then we were able to systematize that, which has been good as well. Because, yeah. So short answer, yes. Now I'm just rambling. Thanks.
Right here. Sorry. We are using similar systems, SOP, starting to get into automated audits, scans, that kind of stuff. Automation, same kind of stuff. We use Redmine for that. I'm curious, and you mentioned Google Sheets, so I'm just kind of curious. I always like to get feedback. What software are you using to help manage for document management, SOP? Are you doing, there's an open source audit package called Tescasana, which we want to implement, which is mainly WC3. Anyway, what software are you using to help along this process? And I'd like to talk to you about it more later in depth too. So
sure. So I'm a huge fan of Google Sheets. That's mostly what I use. I use it for just about everything, mostly because I know how I'm pretty comparable when it comes to the functions in there. I'm pretty comparable with searching on Stack Overflow and stealing other people's scripts for automating just about whatever I want. So it's just where I'm comfortable. I'm pretty comfortable with JavaScript as well. So I built out some small things. So one of the things that we've, I wouldn't essentially say automate, but sped up so much was the process of account management, which is something that I can't stand, and I don't have enough need of it to justify paying someone full time for that. So instead of sending emails to people all the time, I automated that by just having a script through HTML, CSS, and the JavaScript, obviously the functionality of it. If content needs to be uploaded on the site, just put in their name, automatically fills out the entire email, send it off to them in like 30 seconds. Like that's what I use that kind of stuff for, but mostly Google Sheets. There are some software solutions that I want to move to, maybe to just try out to maybe possibly streamline. So it's a lot more difficult to handle the actual project management aspect when other people are also working off of the same Google Sheet. Ryan Stewart has this great Google Sheet project management tool that we tried to use. It just wasn't good enough for what we wanted it to do without paying someone to be able to change it a whole lot. So I've been looking at Asana for like the project management type of thing, Hubstaff for time tracking for the integration. But what I don't want to do is have 8 different softwares where I'm telling people, okay, for when you're doing this today, log into this, then log out of that, then log into this. So I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible, and I'm comfortable with Google Sheets, so I try to do as much as I can within Drive. Even project management right now, just all clients have access to a Drive file, so it's simple in my opinion.
All right, guys. Everyone give it up again for Jarod. Like I said last year, he's the oldest 20-year-old I've ever met in my life. Now he's the oldest 21-year-old. Let's go drink now that you're legal. So guys, this concludes the presentation for today. After this, we're changing venues. We're not going to Beer Lab today. We're going to Japan Village. It's a really nice, sexy venue. Again, we have it all to ourselves. They're serving like snack food there, but if you're feeling hungry, go ahead and get a meal. We have some time. So 7:30, Japan Village. I hope to see every single one of you there. If not, you're taking a shot next time I see you, okay? Bye-bye.